Another edition here of Getting There with Goz, where we talk about the career journeys of athletes, coaches, media members, and business owners from upstate New York. We got that athlete segment now here in football season. Capital Region fans know him. Maybe some people a little east or west of the Capital Region are about to learn his story. Jordan Canzeri joins us. And Jordan, for those who may not know, let's go back to a younger version of you. 6, 7, 8 years old. Where'd you grow up? What'd you want to be as a kid? And was it that same dream job you wanted when you were 18 years old?
Oh, so born and raised Troy, New York. For me, growing up, my father, he was in law enforcement. He worked for the environmental conservation state of New York. So seeing animals, seeing, what he did for his job, I kind of thought that's what I wanted to get into. But I would say once I was around like 18, I knew some family friends that were in the FBI, so things changed there. But even after college, when I graduated with my first degree, it even changed there. I was like, yeah, this law stuff is a little too boring for me. So finished with a different degree, and now I'm in that career. But again, we can get into that a little later. Yeah, so for me, a lot of people don't know, for football being like my main whole background and everything, I grew up without a favorite NFL team. I just love to play and run around. For me as well, I think when I was about 8 years old, I almost 8 or 9 years old, I had a bad experience with my Pop Warner team. Quit football for a year, almost never played ever again. And luckily, I got one of my buddies to convince me when I was, I think, 11 or 10 or 11 years old, to join a different Pop Warner program called the Brunswick Bulldogs out by like Tamarack and stuff. So I finally was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And then ever since then, the rest is history. So
I got to follow up on that because I might have a bad was it the South Troy Trojan Warriors? Because when I was out in Syracuse, they knocked me out of the national championship. When they won that title in 2002, they beat me in the semis, that squad. All right, we'll keep that together. So we both got a little bad blood for the South Troy Trojan Warriors. All right. So Troy itself, though, like the high school football program in particular, your team in particular, you look back at the history, we're taping this in September of 2022, over the last 10 years, like Troy high school football is right in that conversation, if not the top upstate New York high school football program. And you and your teammates were a big reason for that.
Yeah. Coach Jack Berger, he's now helping up, I believe, at Schuylerville. He was a huge part of the Troy history with bringing several teams to states. And then Bobby Burns, who's now at CBA, he's just created his own legacy, and he's only going to just continue to make that grow because what he does for his kids and even with his staff is above and beyond. So I was definitely lucky to be able to have some great coaches that I worked with. They made sure we had that strong group that was doing all the 5 a.m. workouts and, really pushing us to the limit on things. And when I even got to Iowa, there were some guys that I met that were like, oh, we never did that in high school. So it was definitely, funny to hear, but again, just very appreciative and blessed to have like the coaches that at least, put me in that action mode for when I right away got to Iowa. I felt like I was already a head up on people.
Our visual audience had a nice clue where that college story was going to go as you're rocking the polo on our video side, repping your Hawkeyes. Let's talk about that recruiting process, because for college football fans, they might look at the South, they might look at the West and think about, oh, that's where the Power 5 recruits are coming from. That's where the D1 guys are coming from. Let's talk about your recruiting process. What schools were you looking at, and why eventually did you decide to sign with the Hawkeyes?
So honestly, around here, it's a tough thing with recruiting, and it's another reason why I honestly decided to stay in my home area and try to kind of fix this issue. But even talking with other colleges and recruiters, around here is one of the hardest areas where we don't have legitimate recruiting services that keep track of certain players in the area. So they have to do a lot of groundwork when it comes to recruiting. So for me, I had D3, D2 schools coming in at Troy High, looking me up and down, saying, sorry, you're too small. I was putting weights in my pockets when they were weighing me on, the scales and stuff. And other schools came around, like Albany told me I wouldn't play until my junior year. Wagner came up. So for me, it wasn't really searching or like looking at a specific school. I was honestly just working my tail off and just hoping like whatever would come, and hopefully the best. And Syracuse, I got bad blood for Syracuse, I gotta admit. When they reached out to Berger for our state championship game, said that they were going to send coaches there. I mean, come on, we play the championship game, state championship game in the Carrier Dome. They said they bring people and nobody showed up. And I had a great game, so that was upsetting. And then they offered another running back that I guess got in trouble for shoplifting or something like that. And then they reached out to me from there, and I was like, nah, I'm good. But even with Iowa, I had people that were telling me not to go there. You wouldn't play until your junior, maybe senior year, if any at all. And for me, I was just always used to proving people wrong. So I was just like, nah, I know if I go there, I'll put my, I'll do my thing, and just studied hard, worked the playbook so hard that I was even reminding older guys what certain new plays were. And luckily got my chance to shine freshman year and score my first touchdown in the bowl game. So it was a real roller coaster, a lot of ups and downs. But the funny thing is, a lot of people don't know this, but when Kirk Ferentz first called me over the phone and offered me a scholarship over the phone, I told him no, because I had no idea who he was, didn't know where Iowa was. And I had my girlfriend at the time in the back chirping my ear, like, will you get off the phone? And at that point, I was verbally committed to Villanova. So I was just like, no, I'm okay. He's like, you sure? And I was like, yeah, no, I'm okay. But thank you so much. And he's like, all right. And hangs up and calls my dad. And let's just say a few minutes later, my dad called me with some words of wisdom. I just did some air quotes, but yeah, I called him right back and I was like, I'm so sorry. Yes, I'd love to come and visit. So from there was history. But yeah, it was a fun time for sure.
There's so much stuff to go back to on that. It's a great story, and thank you for sharing that story about Kirk. Didn't know. That's awesome. For the Syracuse thing, and by the way, Syracuse people know this. Yeah, that running back position recruiting. They said no to Melvin Gordon. They said no to Latavius Murray, who's in his backyard. So yeah, Syracuse has been making some mistakes, and you're on that list of people that they should not have passed on over the last 10 years of that running back position. But going back to that D2 and D3 stuff, that's why it's so hard to read a younger version of you when you're a teenager, because when you're going through that recruiting process, that puts a little chip on your shoulder saying, oh, you guys don't want me, but these FCS and FBSs do. You guys don't know what you're talking about. But then when you've got that, okay, I'm going to go to Villanova, I'm going to go to Iowa. Jordan, you're hard to figure out. And maybe that's how you felt as a teenager. Like, I got to find my path, but all that I'm really sure of is that if I bust my butt, I know I'm going to find my role on the field. And that's what it feels like. Like, you had confidence in your ability more than anything else.
Yep. I mean, since I was in Pop Warner, I had people telling me, oh, on modified, you won't be able to run like that. Oh, once you get to JV, you won't be able to run like that. Never got brought up to varsity because I had coaches telling me, oh, on JV, Jordan, you can't run like that once you get to varsity. And I did. So I was just always used to having to prove people wrong in that sense. So it's right when people were telling me, oh, don't go to Iowa, you won't play until your senior year. I'm like, no, I'm going to prove that I can. And went freshman year and played. And the one thing I realized when it came to those decisions between like D3, D2 to D1, top D1A, is it's just the confidence in your own staff and resources. So these D3 schools coming in, they don't have the top facility. They don't have the best strength staff. Most likely they might be confident in their own, but I'm sorry, when you compare it to University of Iowa, there's a big difference. But when I was talking with them, all those smaller schools were looking for the fit package already. But when it came to the larger schools that came in, and when I was talking to Iowa, their strength coach even said to me, is just that we want to be able to see you can just play football. Yes, I was undersized, and yeah, they still, did do a little reach to be able to take a chance on me, and everything ended out great. But they're like, we're confident that if you can play ball, we'll put weight on you. My man, Brandon Sheriff, who's still in the NFL, I'm pretty sure he's with the Commanders. he was a quarterback, and now he's a offensive and might even become a Hall of Fame lineman. We had tons of guys who came in different positions that were changed, and they would just bulk them up because they knew what to do. But again, the smaller schools, they were looking for the guys that were already like that type of package player that they were looking for. So again, it just kind of tells a difference to me of like confidence and what you're able to do with your own athletes too.
So you've got the situation where you're coming out of high school, people are doubting you. Not only do you get the scholarship and go to Iowa, you get on the field, and a lot of things start to change because I know there's an injury at one point in your career at Iowa, and then as you get older, like we're talking about you being an all-league guy and one of the best running backs in the country at one point. Was it the offseason? Was it the attitude? What happens here your time out in Iowa? Because it's still going like this out there with the Hawkeyes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, there was even a point where, to be fully transparent, I thought about transferring. But it was one of those things where I just had to kind of even remind myself where my humble beginnings were. And even though I was confident in my ability, it showed once I just got on the field. Injuries did occur, and that's something that I knew would hurt the future NFL stock, but I still, just worked hard to be able to get my opportunity. But yeah, I mean, for me, for a long time, it was easy to kind of focus on the things that didn't happen in senior year, especially where, most people forget. But senior year, I still ended up third team All Big Ten. I think I was tied in touchdowns and everything, and I missed 4.5 games. And was, I think, like less than 30 yards away from 1,000, and I missed almost 5 full games. So it definitely, for a long time, I'd sit there and think about all the what ifs, but I have to be, again, appreciative and just feeling blessed to have had the opportunity to play at Iowa. But then at the same time, small kid from Troy being able to go at a school like that. And my senior year was the starting running back in our first ever 12-0 school history regular season. And Iowa's been playing football for over 100 years, so it's like it is something that I should be proud of, and I want to be able to bring that to the capital region, and hope that I can train or give another athlete another opportunity to even do farther than what I did. So it was a hell of a roller coaster, great ride, and made a lot of real good memories playing there.
On our visual side, by the way, this confirms this is true. I've been voting for the Heisman Trophy since 2015, and you are the last athlete I'm allowed to ever tweet about because you can't talk about the award. So up on the screen for our audio side, it said Troy's own Jordan Canzeri is putting himself in a serious Heisman Trophy consideration with his efforts for Iowa. Huge effort again this week. So, man, it was that good. Like, we were talking about you as one of the best running backs in the country if people forgot. So, I know you're almost being humble at times, man. That's how good that run was for you at Iowa and what was happening. And that 12-0 season, man, you guys are one game away from playing for the championship if things go different in that Big Ten title game, if I remember. And it was a wild season, too, if everything happened with those victories.
Oh, yeah. And again, just injuries can do a lot. And we had guys who did a great job being the next person in. Even this weekend, it was really nice to see, even though they didn't come away with the win, Falcons tight end Parker Hesse. It's just funny because my senior season, we had a huge injury in a defensive end, Drew Watt. If he didn't get hurt, he was 100% being drafted in the first round. My man was a freak, but he tore his ACL had to get knee surgery. And then Parker Hesse, a sophomore, steps up, kills it for the rest of his career, defensive end, and now he's a tight end in the NFL. So that's just another thing for the young bucks and athletes coming up, is just play your role, but you really never understand and never know where you could really end up. But yeah, we had a really good line. Quarterback CJ Beathard put us in great opportunities. So as happy as I was with my even with the loss of gameplay, happy with what I was able to do. I got to admit that I had a team to be able to follow suit and help me out to get there. But the one other cool thing that, again, for a while I looked over, but now that it's been a while that I've been done, now I can just really appreciate what I experienced. my very last handoff in Kinnick Stadium was a 48-yard touchdown, I think. So senior game to be able to end that for my career again was just, something to really look back on and be happy about.
Amazing. The Capital Region, upstate New York, proud of everything you accomplished there. But that's not where the story ends for you. There's still a lot more, because although it ends, the eligibility ends in college, you look towards the future, the next step. Let's talk about it. What happens post-Iowa for you? Are you training for the NFL, for professional football? Are there camp invites? Let's go through this process of what happens for you once the eligibility runs out and where your professional career takes you.
Yep. So my agent and I would talk, and the one thing he let me know, and I already knew for myself, was, again, just with the injury history I had with, at that point, I had ACL surgery, I had a bone spur injury, and then my senior year alone with the 2 high ankle sprains, I knew that was going to hurt my draft stock, but still had teams calling me, still had a lot of interest, still have, if they're even still have the job, but still have team staff in my phone. But I just knew for myself, my agent said, okay, Jordan, you have to get a 4.40. You have to get, these certain numbers in your 3-cone and pro agility. And I was real nervous because the week of my pro day, I actually pulled my hamstring. And after my first 40-yard dash, I go over to one of my strength coaches and I have my leg wrapped. I have a sleeve on. I have all this stuff. And I said to him, I was like, I don't know if I can run another one. And he just looks, points around at the whole room. He's like, you see all those NFL staff members, all teams here? You won't get another chance at this. You sure you want to stop? And I just told him, I was like, yeah, hell no, I'm going to keep going. Got all the times I needed. Everything worked out great. Got my camp invite opportunities. And then Kansas City, I break my hand. So, and that happened, but I was still placed on injury reserve. Same thing with the Browns when they brought me in their rookie mini camp and liked what I did. I landed #1 running back on injury reserve. And I go home, back to Iowa. A lot of people don't know this story either, but went back to Iowa, got surgery, and less than a week later, when I'm in my hard cast, I get a call from the Rams when I'm bartending at like 11 o'clock at night saying, we're calling you and 2 other running backs to come out tomorrow. We just cut a guy. Whoever does the best, they're not going home. So I cut my cast off at the bar, flew out, and they told me I wasn't even allowed to work out for that whole week. But I went there, showed up. They saw my stitches, were like, what the hell? I'm like, oh, don't worry. I was supposed to get him out soon. Like, you can take him out. Took him out. Luckily, my hand didn't reopen. So I perform, compete, and I was confident. But, right after we were done, they literally said, you two, you're done. To this other guy, you're staying. So I'm walking back to the hotel room, and it's literally on campus where we practice. And so it was less than 5 minutes that my agent calls me and says, Jordan, they said they really did like you, but their team doctor wouldn't clear you for another month because of your hand and they need somebody now. So disappointed, frustrated, but I took the decision to either stay home and train, or I took an opportunity that was presented to me to go play professionally in Japan, where their contract wasn't very binding. So I'm like, okay, if I want to leave and if I get a call from a team, I can just come back home and play regardless. So it's fine. Forgot about the time zone. And first week there, I get a call from the Jets while I was sleeping. And then by the time I woke up and called them back, I saw they signed somebody else. So I was like, oh, crap. And second game in there, I tore my other ACL. So a lot of injuries, a lot of ups and downs, and, a lot of bitterness, to be honest. But for me, again, I took some time with the healing process mentally as well. But again, I was just very happy to, especially my second year when I decided to go back out into Japan and play the whole year. The experience was amazing. Instead of being bitter about not making it to the league, I just fully immersed myself in the culture out there and still have a lot of amazing friends, still have teammates that are out there still playing, keep in touch with. So just being able to play professionally in Japan for 2 years is something that, you know, a lot of people can't say. So even though things didn't work out the way I wanted to, still just very appreciative of the opportunities I had, the experience and memories. And now I'm back in this area. And again, my mission is now I want to be able to help athletes around here make it even farther than I did.
I know you feel competitive about it. I can still feel it on you that you want that opportunity, you want that shot. I do want to go back to Kansas City and Cleveland, though, because I don't want to overlook what really that moment was. Because let's remember it. I know looking back now, you feel like, what if this happened? What if that happened? But you got there, man. Like, you got the helmet, you got the jersey, you got the workout equipment, you got the calls. You're at a bar and the Rams are calling you. Like, I hope looking back 6-7 years past this now at this point of, okay, like, I got a shot. You know, there's few people. There's a lot of people who dream of what you got. And I hope you still think back. You're like, was there a moment where you got to appreciate it, or were you just locked in? You're like, yo, I got to make the roster. I got to do that. Because I hope with hindsight being 2020, you're like, yo, I got there. Like, it happened. I got to be a part of this NFL thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it definitely took time. As I said, when I was like in the moment, things were rough. And for me, all the things that I've gone through, you know, I just try my best to eventually at least have that optimistic view, or just seeing the collateral beauty, seeing the things that I was able to gain and appreciate, even though a lot of things went bad. It's something that, yeah, as you mentioned, a lot of people would dream for that opportunity. Even going to the Rose Bowl, even though Christian McCaffrey completely made it his highlight film, still to be able to go to the Rose Bowl when I grew up watching, and one of my favorite games was the Reggie Bush and Vince Young Rose Bowl. Just to, yeah, be able to sit back and think that I was able to do that from this area was awesome. And for me, again, with my goal of now is, especially with what I was able to prove, being 5'9", I walked into Iowa 172 pounds and started over guys and got the opportunity to play in the Insight Bowl, our bowl game against Oklahoma, over juniors, sophomores, other freshmen that came in at Texas and Illinois that were plus 6 foot, 200 pounds. But I, a 5'9", 172 pound athlete freshman year, put himself in the position to play because I worked hard and I studied the heck out of the playbook, didn't make mistakes. So I'm just happy that if I was able to do it, it just proves that it's possible. And one issue that I have around here that, again, it's something that I'm desperately trying to change, is just the overall mindset that around here we only have D3 talent. And there was a coach I was talking to the other day, won't say any names, but I straight out say the main reason why I decided to stay is because too many people believe that we only have D3 talent around here. But if we start young, and there's plenty of guys that are capable, they just need the right guidance and direction, and we can have guys go and play at great schools. The guy literally looked me in the eyes and goes, yeah, but I mean, it is true about only D3 talent. And I'm just like, I don't know what else to do and say, but it's a lot. But that's a whole other fun topic to get into.
Don't worry. In the future, I'll be having you answer more of those questions. And that's a big burden you're carrying on yourself of almost being the face of this. Like, yo, we can do this in New York. We know, it. You've seen the workouts. You know the talent. You know how thin that margin can be and how guys can get over the top if they're given an opportunity. Now, this next question, it might feel awkward for you. It's going to feel more awkward for me because I'm the Albany Empire broadcaster. And when I interviewed you years ago on the radio side, they brought in you and Wade Hansen as signees for the Albany Empire. And a lot of fans didn't know exactly what happened with that. I'll just, I'll give this to you. I felt very frustrated by the interview. And I don't think I've told people this before. I was very frustrated with the interview with you and Wade, not because of you guys. You guys were great. But it felt like it was presented like you guys were already on the team. And they're like, oh, we got the 2 local kids. Make sure to get your tickets, by the way. Now, look, there's new ownership. There's new management. I don't feel as bad about that because they're different people. But I feel like I kind of set you up for that, right? Like, did it piss you off is basically, let's just not sugarcoat it. It pissed me off how the Empire thing was presented. Am I wrong with how you felt about that situation?
Oh, no, you're not wrong. And the only reason I can say that, even besides my own self personally, is you are not the only person to say that. Um, Even the fact of, friends of family and family themselves and what they told them. And, for them too, they wanted everyone to buy their tickets nice and early. So they're literally making all these promises in front of my parents. So whole family bought season tickets, all these different things and all that. And then all of a sudden they let me go. But for me, it was still, to me, something that I was frustrated, but at the same time, I kind of knew it was going to happen because I'm a running back, and in the AFL, there is no running back. It's pretty much a lineman slash fullback. And as soon as they said, okay, you got to go at slot, that was something particularly new to me. When I was doing my NFL camps, they had me there a little bit. So I did do some practice, and later on, worked with a player at Iowa who played in the NFL, Tim Dwight, who is a track star specialist, return specialist, all the whole nine. And so I did get some practice, but it still was like new rules, new position. I knew that when I started catching wind and hearing that all they were doing was signing these veterans, I was like, all right, well, I know I'm kind of close to the chopping block. But again, it was just with expectation for me, where I was like, all right, I'll just work as hard as I can, and what happens, happens. But for me, when I got let go, I was like, whatever, I'm on to something better. Because I just got reached out from the Saskatchewan Rough Riders from the CFL to go do that tryout. And then once I heard Wade got cut, that's when I was like, okay, this is completely messed up, because he was dominating and killed it. And then there was another safety, Brandon Fuentes, who I think he went to St. John Fisher and still friends with them now. He got cut and he balled out in camp. But what was the common denominator? We were all rookies, never had experience in indoor, never really knew the rules. And then what happened after? They signed veteran after veteran after veteran. So that was something that it definitely did burn a little bit, just because of, the way they were talking, the way they were presenting, saying they already had plays lined up, all this and that. I didn't mind, because I know I had a really bad hand issue, and back, I pulled my hamstring. No, I pulled something in my lower back, but I just kept pushing it through, where I was like, oh, I don't even feel like I'm playing at my top, but I'm still doing good. But then I remember when I was working with this one group, I was at this event in Crossgates, and I saw Joe Sykes, and great guy, love what he's doing. Him and his wife have been doing with transforming the capital region with their brand. But he even told me, he's like, everyone was surprised because you were the fastest on the team. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, but it definitely was vocally seen to be more of like a concrete thing, even if it was just special teams or just like jet sweeps or anything like that. So I would say it did leave a little bad taste.
It adds more context for this for people who might be outside of the capital region. At that point, there was only 4 teams. So, like, look, if the league's 10 teams, so the league's 6, if the league's 8, it might be a whole different story. They might be like, no, obviously he's making the team. But with a smaller league, they might be like, oh, we know this guy, we know that guy. That never made sense. I just wanted to address that because it was not well handled. Personally, I'm glad you felt the same way I did. I felt weird about it as a media member, where I'm like, dude, why is this presented like this? This is not right for the audience. This is not right for fans.
Yeah.
But you're a pro. You handled it like a pro, and I'm glad you did your thing and you balled out and did what you had to do. You've mentioned this throughout our conversation today too, like the new future for you and working with young athletes. So best advice for young athletes. If someone wants to be the next you, the next Jordan Canzeri, whether they're in Syracuse or Rochester or Troy or Scotia, Glenville, wherever they might be listening to this, what's the best advice for that young athlete to get where you got in your career, to Iowa, Division I football, to NFL, to all these different leagues? What's the best advice you can offer them?
I would say words of wisdom to remember is believe in your vision no matter what, because the amount of obstacles I had to face and go through, and again, people telling me not to do this, not to do that. If I listened to any of them during the way, none of my future would have been a possibility. It's where if you don't have that belief, then already you've closed all the doors in front of you. So you just have to continually see your vision and believe it no matter what, and put the effort and time in, because I would say that, I don't care if it even sounds cocky, but when I was young, I would put my life on the line to say that there wasn't someone working harder than me. But it doesn't mean that only I can do that. Every person is capable of doing that. But I just believed in it and dreamed in it and focused on that opportunity. And it didn't matter how big things got. I just kept my eyes on it and worked as hard as I could. And, what is there is now history. And now I'm able to use that as a stepping stone and stage to be able to help others. So there was definitely times at Iowa where, I let certain things get to me, and later in life where different experiences also halted me and got in the way, where again it just took me another opportunity to learn through some trials and tribulations. But it's just, again, the fact that I still just believed, and no matter how many people told me no, or told me I couldn't, or it wasn't a possibility, I just had faith and things worked out. Heck,
Well,
even my freshman year, my strength coach literally in front of everybody in the weight room told me that I was a China doll and I was too small and I wouldn't make it in the Big Ten, and then I should just go home. And yeah, it hurt to hear, but again, immediately I told myself, no, it's not true. I don't believe him. And I was able to finish it out. So yeah, I would just say believe in your vision, or believe in your goals no matter what.
thank you for sharing your story. This is one of my favorite stories I've ever got to share during football season. For having that chip on your shoulder, that self-confidence, so many young athletes with social media expanding and the criticism coming through, they're not used to handling it. And you just sharing that story at the end of, you can use it two ways. You can fold up or you can ball out, and you continue to ball out and do it, man. So, hey, if people want to continue to follow your story, if you know what you're doing now, you mentioned Troy High School before, but what is kind of that role you guys are doing now in the future and hoping to expand those New York recruits out there?
Yep. So right now I do my own like football consulting, working with like individual athletes, where I'll either help them kind of understand the recruiting process a little bit more, and like give certain tips of like how to kind of give yourself a certain edge, or get some extra exposure. I also do something a little further on, which I've done it more individually as like control groups, but now starting next year is going to be, I'm going to make it a little more broad, but doing highlight film revisioning and also hit film construction, because everybody knows our attention spans are just getting shorter and shorter. Look at TikTok, look at everything else. It's just like, it's tension grabbing quick things that just people gravitate to. So recruiting is doing the same thing, and it's changing so quickly. I remember even my like second to last year at Iowa, one of our receiver coaches, who now is at Stanford, is literally like, I got to learn how to use Twitter now. And but it's moving fast. But what the issue that I come across, and that a lot of parents and athletes don't understand, is when it comes to the recruiting, you have recruiting coordinators, you have individual staff that are hired just to watch film, and then coaches will only be presented something if it's already past a certain level, or something that just somehow lands directly on their desk, and luckily they got the time for it. But most coaches will give a film 30 seconds. If they don't like what they see, they turn it off. And with that, it becomes very important on your play selection and what you decide to do with your highlight, and how the ordering you decide. And one of my clients I worked with, he had great film, great plays, but his best play that gave me an overall, like, honest, like, wow, that was a really good play, was 4.5 minutes deep. And that's the point, is sometimes a play may look like it's deserving to be upfront, but it doesn't really show your true athletic ability like another play that you didn't even realize really did. So with my background and all the people I've been able to see and experience and play by, and how many of my teammates are still in the NFL and guys that I got to play against and see, I feel that I do have a step up to be able to like help out people in that area. And the other plus is, if I do not know, I'm going to somebody who actually does. I still have, one of my best friends, just as an example, Jake Rudock, played quarterback here at Iowa last year, transferred to Michigan, played Harbaugh's first season as their head coach, won the Orange Bowl against Florida, was on the Detroit Lions, and then also the Miami Dolphins. So if I'm working with my quarterbacks and I have something I don't know, I'll literally call him and he will give me answers and do what he can. So I have guys with different positions, guys at different colleges that are now coaching, and I just want to be able to use the resources I have to now give kids in this area a better leg up. So right now I'm also officially working at Troy High School as a principal's assistant, and then I will also help out on the track team. But just to give a heads up, now that I have access to our facilities and I've been granted, we're already in the works of creating and starting skills and drills camps. I think in our area, some places we focus a little too much on physical contact and just hitting each other, and not really helping these athletes understand what it truly takes, when it's just, you got to have good footwork, you got to have good coordination, and different things like that that can be taught without clocking heads and having more physical contact when you get plenty in the fall camp and going into the season. So I'm going to be holding my own camps coming up. And again, I just want to be able to use everything that I've learned and what I've been able to gain, and hopefully it can help one person. It will be enough, but trying to get tons of our athletes around here to be able to have the same opportunities as me.
I'm so excited for the future. I'm so glad you hopped on. This is the perfect platform to do this, where we're trying to make people better, whatever it might be, a business owner, a media member, a coach, an athlete, sharing that wisdom that you're going to hopefully listen back to this a year from now, 3 years from now, and be like, okay, that was the start of a new journey. And look where we're standing now after all that conversation, all that talk, and all the things we're able to help those athletes. And you mentioned it too, that skill set that you have that you're talking about, man, there is value to that. People care. People don't even, there's an audience that doesn't know what you're talking about. As someone who played D3, I can point to guys on my team and be like, you would have played at a higher level if you knew how to put the tape out. You would have played at a higher level if you did this and that. And I'm so pumped for you, Jordan. Thank you so much for taking the time, man. I know you're super busy with all that on the plate. Best of luck going forward. I'm super excited to follow your story, man.
No, appreciate it, and happy to hop on anytime. So thanks again.